This is a good opportunity to kind of just check the soil health, I guess, and see if we've got good decomposers in here and what soil microbes and what the ecosystem is like. And we have a really nice, healthy, big earthworm, which is a good thing. So it's kind of motivating.
Hi Somerville gardeners, and welcome to our last garden workshop of the season. We're here with our farmer Dani from Green City Growers. She's going to clear out what remains, leave a few things behind, and we're going to plant some garlic today. So I'm going to turn it over to Dani.
Hi everyone, I'm Dani from Green City Growers. I'm a farmer with them, and today I'm here at the Somerville Public Library garden. I'm going to remove plant matter and do the kind of fall shutdown for the garden. So as I said, I'm going to remove the plant matter, and then we're going to put some salt marsh hay down, which is a protective hay, and I'm also going to be planting garlic, which is fun. Before I remove the plant matter, actually, I'm going to harvest what I can, our last harvest of the season. So I'm going to start with this broccoli. This broccoli is a bit mature. It has bolted a bit, which means it's gone to flower. It's starting to reproduce. It wants to spread its seed. But I'm still going to harvest it. It's still plenty fine to eat. And the flowers might give it an extra little taste. The next thing I'm going to harvest is the collard greens. And as you probably already know, the way we harvest it is from the outside, and we take the outer leaves first. But since this is the last one, I'm just harvesting everything, all of the leaves that still look nice. So I'm just gonna go little by little, and I'm just gonna take all that I can because all of these are really good. I personally love collard greens, and these are great size. So I'm just cutting the sage not completely back because I don't want it to be too far back and not grow in the spring. So I'm going to leave a few of these sage leaves, and I mean they will just fall off over the winter, but that's quite all right. We don't have to really prune too aggressively either. It is just kind of like a more intense harvest. But there are tons of different methods and tips and tricks to pruning herbs, and then different fruit bushes and trees. Everything's a little different. So we've got our sage, really nice hearty bag, and I'm just gonna put the parsley in with the sage. This parsley is an annual herb, it's not perennial. So I'm just gonna go ahead and harvest all of it. It smells really nice. Now we've got a really nice bunch of parsley. And now we've harvested everything that we are going to from the bed. So now we can start removing the plant matter. One thing I do with the bigger plants, they have a bigger root system, and so they do have a lot of soil on them. I just kind of make sure I can keep as much soil as possible in the bed. Some people actually will leave the root systems in the soil, and that's totally awesome and cool. I'm not going to, however, though, just because I don't believe that these roots will be able to decompose and incorporate themselves and make themselves back into soil before we plant in the spring again. So I am just going to make that decision, make that call, and remove the roots. However, lots of gardeners and farmers leave them, and if we had a bit more intense operation, I'd probably leave them in there, but I'm going to remove them. And this is a good opportunity to kind of just check the soil health, I guess, and see if we've got good decomposers in here and what soil microbes and what the ecosystem is like. And we have a really nice, healthy, big earthworm, which is a good thing, so it's kind of motivating. I'm definitely keeping the leaves in here. Even some, bits of soil, plant matter are fine to leave in here because, it's more organic matter, and what can break down will break down, and that will only help. So this is really healthy collard, had a great root system, and as we could tell, it was really large and it gave us a lot of collards. And here's its beautiful root system. In here we've got another perennial herb. We have mint, and you can see some of it has already been frost damaged, and yet the plant as a whole is growing wonderfully, because mint kind of sometimes feels like it never dies. So I am just going to go ahead and prune it back pretty intensely. I'm very confident that it will grow back in the spring. For most things, there's this general guideline that you want to do it in thirds. So you want to leave at least a third of a plant. And I think that I usually stick to that guideline too. And the rest of this, I'm just going to remove. I'm not going to harvest any of it. With the lettuce, because the roots are so small, they are going to decompose very quickly. So I'm just removing this, and lots of the roots are coming out, and you can see how little they are and thin. But the ones that stay in there, I'm just gonna let them be, because I am very confident that those can decompose before April, and really they will only help our soil ecosystem. I brought these two flags just to mark where the garlic is, and we decided that we're going to plant the garlic right here because this is the sunny bed. This bed over here to our right is more shaded, and garlic loves sun, and it's also in the soil for a long time, so it needs consistent, constant sun in order to become rather large. And planting it is really cool. We're gonna take this seed garlic and just open it up. We want to plant it with the roots down. So we have this plate here where all the roots connect. And then we're going to separate them so it's just cloves, but we want to keep the kind of the wrapping on it because it will protect the garlic in the winter, and then it'll kind of just shed it into the soil and it'll be great. One kind of tip is just I try to open the garlic not directly above the other garlic because some of it will be molded or rotten, and you just don't want that to kind of sprinkle over the other garlic. So try to keep them a little bit separated. We are also going to plant these about 6 inches apart, 6 to 8 inches. And the way I'm gonna do it too is make little holes. I'm just gonna break up the soil a little bit here. It's quite wet and compact. But I want the cloves to be about 2 to 3 inches deep. You want the root side down so the roots can kind of travel down in the winter. And then I go really make a hole to my knuckles, then make it a little shallower. So that's what it looks like before I kind of pat it down and cover it with soil. This is possibly kind of the most valuable real estate in this garden because it's the sunniest patch and we don't have perennial herbs in these corners, making things a little bit harder for us. So we are prioritizing garlic, which is great, I think. And that's just, something that you will always have to think about, which I think is really cool. Just thinking ahead and thinking about, okay, what do I really want to prioritize in my garden? And then when we harvest these in mid-July, that can be perfect time to plant some later summer crops, or just even think ahead to the fall and maybe plant some winter squash or things like that. And now I am leaving a bit of space between my last garlic and the trellis because I'm assuming we're gonna put cucumbers or tomatoes there. So I do want to reserve that spot for them. It's time to plant garlic when it's the World Series because you want to plant it mid-fall. Usually people plant it starting the last week of October. You can plant it until as late as mid-November. But one thing is that you really don't, we lucked out today because you really don't want to plant it when it's raining because planting garlic into already saturated soil will make it possibly rot or mold, so it's better to plant it on a nice sunny day. All right, so we've got a nice block of garlic here. 6, 7 times 4. Yep, we've got about 28 heads of garlic to harvest next season. So now patience and a bit of good energy. Lots of people will talk about how garlic is a great exercise in faith and patience. So that's what we're doing here. And now we can put our salt marsh hay down. So I brought the salt marsh hay. And really, this is kind of just some sprinkling. And if you have a garden that is left bare over the winter, it's going to be fine. It's just the salt marsh hay is a really great protectant from weed seeds getting in there and then having the space and light to germinate. And the salt marsh hay also helps the soil retain moisture so it won't completely dry out, and it won't completely, like break down and even start to erode with the rain in the winter. So it's just a nice kind of comforting blanket for the winter. Now I don't do it too thick because one thing that it could become if you do it too thick is a pest habitat, and that's from anything like mice or rats or just rodents to aphids and insects that you don't want in the garden. And the sage and the perennial herbs, I do not completely cover. I just tuck them in nicely, but I do let them poke out. And so, yeah, we can see I just cover it so there isn't really like any bare soil showing. But it's not completely matted down where you don't see any soil at all. Over the garlic, I am a little bit more precise and careful to make sure that they are very nicely covered and will be quite warm over the winter. Also, if you have strawberries in your garden, covering them over the winter is definitely recommended, because you really want to get those strawberries back again, and they will kind of become vulnerable to the elements if they're not covered. And I think that a salt marsh hay is the best covering for them. And the reason that we use salt marsh hay and not just any old hay is because we don't want hay seeds in the beds, and this salt marsh hay doesn't have any. Because, could you imagine, just like tons of hay seeds in the spring? That would be quite an overwhelming weed pressure. And so everything is tucked in. We have our garlic labeled, and we have our perennials pruned back a bit. Our irrigation timer is removed, and the irrigation lines are blown out so they won't freeze and damage over the winter. And so we're all tucked in for the winter.